Hi Adrian. Alright, so here's your past life spread, and what we're going to look at is where we are, what you did with the majority of your time, an important day with the relationships and feelings involved, another important day, the death and the lesson learned, and we'll get hints of time throughout. So what I'm going to do is just relay to you the images and impressions that I'm getting, and your job is going to be to try to make connections wherever you can from what we're looking at here to your current life, and I'll try to help too. Alright? So let's start. We're going to start here, and this is Europe. So this card is Europe, and even before I laid that card down, I felt like we were looking at an island somewhere by the sea, coastal. And when I put this down, what it really felt like was somewhere in Greece. And I don't have a specific name, but it feels very much like we're looking at a coastal town in Greece, and if not a larger, if not the main segment of it, then a little island of Greece. But we're looking at Greece, and what came right away was just an emphasis on the ocean breeze, white walls, smooth white walls, and sun. And so, with that said, and it had a very Mediterranean feel as well. So with that said, how you can be making connections already, for example, would be if you've ever had any interest or passion for or like the idea of traveling to Greece, anything Grecian, ancient Greece, if you've seen photos of it and you didn't even know it was Greece, but then you look it up and it's Greece, you're like, oh wow, you know, that place, like if it triggers you, if there's an emotional tie at all, that kind of thing. As well, you can also be someone that likes the water, that finds water very therapeutic, that you might, if you don't already, you might feel like you'd like to live where you have an ocean view or a water view. So water might be important to you in that sense. Another thing could be why the sun is coming up, could be you know, just another thing that you enjoy, the sun. Maybe you enjoy going out, being in the sun, that kind of thing. And I know those are simple, but these little things can play a role in your current life, things from the past that you enjoyed. So keep that in mind. Also Mediterranean. Now this can also mean you might have a thing for Mediterranean food, culture, the language, the people, the, you know, whenever you see photos of it, maybe you even decorate your house in Greek or Mediterranean type of decor, you know, like that kind of thing. We like to surround ourselves with these things and we don't even know why. So just keep that in mind as far as connections can be made. And what's really cool is we're looking at a female life, which is nice because for the past like 4 readings now, it's been male lives. So it's nice to switch it up a little bit. So we're looking at a female life here. And what comes through though is that the female here we're looking at is very, there's a lot of like strong-willedness to her. Like a lot of inner strength, strong, like almost like masculine features of this woman as far as internally, because I'm also feeling like there's a feeling of beauty, so out, like external beauty, internal strength, that kind of thing. That can also connect to you in a sense in this life if you are a very strong-willed person, a strong person. It can even go so far as to being a stubborn person, you know? So let's move along and see what we're doing here. So what you did for the majority of your time here. This card is the protector and guardian card. And a lot of times we get this with a male life, quite honestly. And it usually means, you know, like a protector guardian in the sense of like security or like literally like a warrior or something like that. And I feel like what we're looking at here, not only is there a sense of that warrior spirit, but also the protector guardian, I feel like you are someone who spends your time protecting and guarding information and knowledge. And I feel like we're looking at somebody who is intellectual and studies and I want to say actually gets into the metaphysic aspect of whatever they used to do in this area, region, time. And I feel like this very well could be what we think of as ancient Greece, but I don't feel like it's ancient Greece in the way of like Plato and Socrates, and I don't feel like we're like in that period of time, or at least not where they are. I feel like we're like in this smaller region, and I feel like where we are is there's something like, I'd love for you to Google this. If there's like a Greek island that's known for retaining like secrets of lost knowledge, or secrets, what's it called, those like a school or a library of metaphysics or spirituality or something like that. I feel like we're looking at somebody who is like, it's like when things are passed down the generations, it's like this is passed down to you. And it might be in books, or it might be like you apprentice and you're a teacher or something like that, but I feel like there's a spiritual aspect to this person, something about them knowing knowledge that not everyone knows. In fact, I feel like this is a person where people would travel to come here in order to get that knowledge, or learn, or if they have questions of like the history, or even like almost like I want to say deities or magic, like go so far as to say magic. Like there's something about this that's very like secretive and spiritual. So connect however you can with that, but it could be where in this life you might still have an affinity for like digging up lost knowledge. Like maybe you're someone that is fascinated by like the idea of Atlantis or Lemuria, or mythical places and legendary places, lost places, that kind of thing. Also, this can also speak to you in the sense that you might find that you are very loyal. Like that might be actually a trigger for you, or a pet peeve, I should say. Like if you find people are not loyal, that might be one of your biggest things, is loyalty, the ability to keep your secrets, the ability to be trustworthy. So you might find that you have a lot of integrity and you have these very high standards for people. To be high in integrity, to have high standards for people as far as like what you expect out of people, because we're looking at someone here whose life was kind of just dedicated or devoted to being loyal to the secrets that you are being taught, basically. And it's like when these people come to see you, you don't just give it away. It's almost like there's a sensing that you do. You, in fact, in your current life, you could be someone that can read people very well. Like immediately you can tell if somebody is, I hate to say good or bad, but you know what I mean? Like you might have really good judgment of people, because I feel like that's part of your job here, is to use your intuition to feel out the reason behind, or the motive behind why they're coming to get certain knowledge from you. And I feel like the knowledge is not just knowledge, it's knowledge that's very useful and pragmatic and practical. It's not just like learning something, it's like learning something that will have an outcome for them. Almost like coming to you for lotto numbers, but it's nothing like that. It's just like, I use that because it's like coming to you for something that can be very useful for them, but they have to like meet the certain kind of standards that there are. That's what it feels like. So if that speaks to you, awesome. And if not, that's fine. That's just what's coming up. So what else? I mean, heck, it could be as simple as you might be someone that likes to read. You might be someone that just loves to learn things. You might just be a big old learner, you know what I mean? Like that, it could be that simple too. So keep that in mind. So let's go to the first important day. So, first important day here. This is the war card, and it can mean war as in war, or it can mean war as in like internal struggles and, you know, all kinds of wars. So there's the war card. Here we have the karmic card, which is usually involving people where you come back into different lifetimes with them and you kind of learn off each other. Like you do something for them, they do something for you. You did something to them, they come back to something to you, that kind of thing. So there's a karmic relationship involved here, and the feeling is happy. So what is coming to mind here? What it feels like is that you are located in a place that is highly prized. and it's also I want to say just like fought over. Like I feel like you are really guarding very rare knowledge, and it's almost like you're in a library or a school, whatever it is. It's like very, I can't explain it, valuable. And I feel like where you are is, oh, it's always like wanting to be controlled by various regions. So I feel like a war could be started just because of where you are, because of the things that you are guarding. So I feel like there's this feeling of unrest on this day. It's an unrest in that you don't know if this place that you're in, if you're gonna have to leave, if you're gonna have to, like, as in like flee, if you're gonna be safe, because I feel like you are under a specific ruler, like a specific region's rule, and there are others coming in wanting to take over, and I feel like this island that you're on is actually always guarded by a certain kind of security. Like the region you're in always has like a, for lack of better terms, like a navy surrounding it, whatever it is, because of how valuable this is. But I feel like there's like a big possibility here where it could be overtaken. And if that's the case, there's this feeling of you, and you're not alone here. There's others with you, like not only like superiors, but also your colleagues. And not a lot of people, but enough entrusted with this kind of task. And I feel like there's a gathering up of the most rare, the most valuable things in this place, just in case you guys have to make a run for it. And I just feel like there's, so it's just like this unsettled feeling. So what it feels like is happening is somebody comes, there are people coming in to your area, and it turns out to be the good guys, so to speak. So it's almost like this was a big day of like catching your breath and breathing again, because you didn't know what would happen. So it was almost like you were almost certain, like 90%, that you'd have to make a run for it, and you'd have to leave so much behind, only taking the most valuable things, but then you could breathe again, as though like a last minute something came through and you were saved in that sense. Not you, but everything here was saved. So I feel like the feelings of that would, the happy card comes through for that. It's like more, not so much just happy, but more like relief. Oh, relief. So this day played a big part in your psyche. This day we see you actually growing and developing in maturity. It's like a mature, like you're already mature. That, maybe that's the wrong word, but there's this sense of like you understanding even more the weight of how important these things are that you guard, and the things that you are learning are. You never had this kind of, what's the word, apprehension before. Like there's a feeling of like the most apprehensive you've ever felt in your life, like the most unrest you've ever felt, even though you knew that everybody wanted to come to this place, and there was talks all these years of this place being run over or taken over. It was always pretty peaceful where you are. You always felt secure and safe until this moment, this day. So there's this big sense of relief, and what you gain is an appreciation and the ability of not taking things for granted. So in your current life, how you can connect with this, I would imagine, would be you might be someone who really does not take things for granted. You might wake up every day and think, God, source, your guides, whoever you think, you just might be very thankful in general as a person, and not take things for granted. Or you might find that you went through something in your life, in this current life, where you learn not to take things for granted. It might be a theme for you. So keep that in mind. And I feel like this would actually be coming up because this is a big step towards living in grace. And when you do that, when you don't take things for granted and you're appreciative and grateful for every little thing that you have, that is a huge step in development and growth and the ability of expansion in your soul, whether you want to develop gifts or abilities, or gain more clarity or insight, or jumpstart your intuition, whatever it is, this is a huge bonus to have as a part of your being, someone that's able to not take things for granted and be grateful. So I feel like that's what would be coming up for that reason, would be to just tell you to keep on keeping on, and that's a good state to be in. A state of grace, a state of not taking things for granted, a state of being grateful. So let's go to the next important day. Here we have, there is death in this place, and this usually indicates that we're seeing death. There's a witnessed, and someone is witnessing death, or something is happening. It's not always great. The relationship card here is the family card, so we're going to be seeing family involved, and then the horror card right there. And it's interesting because the last reading I did had the death card here with this horror card, but just a different relationship. So that's always interesting when the same kind of cards come together but with a different relationship. That's interesting to me. So what are we seeing here? So we're seeing what feels like years later, and I feel like, unfortunately, what we are seeing is, I feel like, a sense of slaughter, but almost like not so much bloody, but more biological. I feel like what we're seeing is the enemy kind of makes its mark. The same thing here, except they got in. So we're seeing years later, there's another attempt, and it's weird because I don't feel like there's like this hostile takeover kind of thing, but I feel like we're looking at some key members of the school or library that you're at are biologically killed. Like, and by that I mean it's a sense of feeling like these people were like poisoned. So I feel like we're actually seeing like poisoning of the top guardians or protectors or whatever it is you do, librarians, school, I don't know what to call them, but it feels like the most revered ones, the ones with the most knowledge and the most skill and wisdom, it feels like they were poisoned, and on purpose, by an enemy of some kind. And it's weird because you're fine, you're left, and you have colleagues that are like peers, like around the same age, and it feels like you guys find them, and it strikes like this chord of fear into you that hits like really deep. And it's almost like that was the intention, was just to screw this entire thing up. It was almost like the enemy was like, if we can't have this place, then we're gonna do whatever we are going to do to mess it up. And I feel like how it messes it up, and how it's so important that like this happened. Why they didn't just kill everyone? Because they knew that by leaving people alive to witness what's happened, it's almost like you never lived another day in your life without fear. And the fear aspect gets in the way of what you're supposed to be doing here, because I feel like in your job, you're protecting, you're guarding, I get it, the knowledge and stuff, but it's also a feeling of using your intuition too. You use a lot of your intuition, and that is best done when you're very balanced. And it's like this strike of fear into you and your colleagues or your peers, the heart of you guys. It like screwed up the equilibrium, like something went completely off balance. So it's almost like if this place was, let's just like play with some words right now, and I want to say, if this place was a magic library, now it's become a library that was known to be magic at one time. Does that make sense? It's almost like it lost its it lost the I don't know, the feeling of like mysticism, or the feeling of safety, or the feeling of something magical happening. It's like something died. It's almost like it's like a line of like, it was like a bit of magic like died, and there was something that was like released away from, like, it's almost like if it contained magic, the magic kind of fluttered out. I know that sounds really weird, and I don't use the word magic a lot, so bear with me, but that's what it feels like. And it feels also like you and your peers, it's like you knew that that's what happened, and then you took responsibility for it, even though it's not. So I feel like this day we're looking at is so important, because this is the kind of day that would truly stick with someone's soul and transfer with them. So if you can make a connection to this, I would say that if you're somebody that has a fear, like a fear that you can't explain, like maybe you're someone that has a fear of failing, a fear of not succeeding, same thing, a fear of like attack for no reason. You might be paranoid. You might be like paranoid in the sense in this day and age of like looking behind you if someone's following you. You know, that kind of thing. Paranoid of feeling watched. Paranoid of maybe almost like you always feel like you're on guard. So keep that in mind. If you ever feel that way, if you feel like this, if you feel fear that you can't quite understand where it comes from, or if you feel the paranoia, or if you feel on guard and your back's up for no reason, or very easily, like the smallest thing might make you go, like, might trigger it. You gotta know that would come from here, because this is somebody whose life was dedicated to their duty, and then who believed that because of their action or lack of action, they were not able to protect what they were supposed to protect, their family. And because of that, they felt responsible and also fearful, because who knows, it could happen again. So I feel like this is actually coming up for you. If that speaks to you at all, this would be coming up for you as a message for you to start processing that and letting go of that fear, and letting go of the paranoia, or letting go of being on guard, and being more free and more open with yourself and others, more trusting of yourself and others, and not taking on the burden or responsibility that isn't your responsibility, because all of that is going to hinder you. Those are all obstacles. Those are all keeping you back and holding you back, and the only thing that is holding you back in that respect would be yourself. So it's almost like this is coming up. If this speaks to you, if any of that speaks to you, it's coming up as a message for you to let go of it. Start to let go of it. And I know it's easier said than done, but it's really important that you try. You spend every day trying. Every time you feel these feelings, you recognize them, you acknowledge them, and you try to change them or substitute them or let them go. Okay? So keep that in mind. All right, that was a very heavy feeling day. Let's go to the death card. So here we have the water. And the water card can mean a lot of things, you know, drowning, and it's a bunch of weird stuff that's come up with the water card. What it felt like when I actually laid the card down was a storm. So a storm hits. I feel like we're looking at a lot of rain and moisture, almost like, I don't know if they have hurricanes over there, but it would be like a hurricane of sorts that stayed for many days. And excuse me, it feels like it's not the hurricane or the storm, or it's not that you died in the storm or anything. It actually feels like you caught like a cold that turned into bronchitis, that turned into pneumonia. It feels like you basically got sick from the weather, from the storm. It's like you just didn't take care of yourself. And how this can connect to you in any way, if at all, would be, well, simply, if you're really like, what's the word? Just like, you just don't like driving in the rain, basically. If you don't like driving in bad weather, that's a simple thing. But how else this can connect to you is if your immune system is not so strong and you easily get colds or bronchitis, or if you've got pneumonia, if you get like these chest congestion things that happen from what you know, like bronchitis or a cold or whatever would be like chest congestion-y kind of things. Sinus issues, if you have sinus issues or allergies in that way. And also it can also mean dehydration. So if you have any of that, and also what would come with that could be fatigue or sinus headaches. So if you get that, it could very well stem from this kind of thing, which, if it does stem from this kind of thing, what's cool is that you can always get over it through meditation, through hypnosis, through recognizing where it comes from and realizing it doesn't serve you anymore, and then you let it go. So that's kind of cool. But if you don't have any of those things, that's good. That's a good thing. So let's move on to the lesson. Now the lesson here is compromise. And what's interesting is we're looking at a card of compromise when this whole life is all about your duty. So we're looking at someone here, this woman. She does not give herself really any like personal joy. There's no like she loves her work, and that's really great. But there's nothing personal that stands out because her whole life is dedicated to this job, to this work, to fulfilling her duties, to being loyal to fulfilling her duties, which feels very much like in this time period and based on what she's doing, it's expected. It's the what's it called? The career, the job she took on, you're expected to basically just spend your whole life dedicated to that. And that's fine and that's great. And we get a lot of that when it comes to nuns too. They just like spend their whole life dedicated to, and that can really stick with someone. And how that can stick with them, for example, is you might be someone in your current life where you don't give yourself time, or you don't give yourself priority, or you don't give yourself self-love, or it's like you're not catering to yourself at all when you should be. You might be someone that's just like all about your job, or what, maybe it's paying the bills and taking care of, if you have kids, taking care of kids, or your parents, or whoever, like if you're in a relationship, it's all about that person, or just about appointments, and what I mean, like there's catering to your life, but then there's catering to like your soul and your heart and your happiness. And I feel like this is where it's coming up, is make sure that you are catering to yourself, because we're looking at someone here that indicates that you might have a lot of responsibility and take on a lot of responsibility. And I feel like this would be coming through as just a message, kind of like a reminder that, hey, remember, you're in control of the responsibility that you take on. So make sure you watch yourself and like watch how much you're taking on. Don't spread yourself too thin, and make sure what you're doing, at least 50% of what you're doing brings you joy. Hopefully 100%, but at least make sure that half of your time spent as a human being on earth is spent making yourself happy in some way, and if you can get to 100, get to 100%. So I feel like that's why the compromise card is coming up, because it almost feels like you compromise a lot of your happiness for responsibility, and it should be the other way around. You should be letting go of the responsibility, letting go of the burden of responsibility that isn't your responsibility to hold, and you should be focusing on the happiness part. And by responsibility, I mean, we all have to like take care of our end of stuff. What I'm saying is the responsibility of other people, taking on others' responsibility, should not be your burden in this life. And if it is, to let it go. So yeah, sorry that was a little heavy. There's your past life. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you were able to make some connections, and thanks for letting me read you.